Good morning, eighth graders. This is the first set of tutoring for the PSSA. Just because we are working in cyber, it doesn't mean that we can totally remove ourselves from some of the things that we still have to do. So many of you have not had a test for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. Maybe you haven't even had a test since fifth grade, and maybe as early as long ago as fourth. So this is a first tutoring session. We'll focus just on an overview of the PSSA as a friendly reminder. Now, for ELA, we have a very much what we would call a standardized test. And if we get a look at the standardized structure of it, the scoring sampler is available to you on the internet, and your parents can get it. I wouldn't recommend printing it. It is about 60 pages long. So I'm going to go over just the overview of what the test looks like. So what we have in the PSSA exam is we have a scoring guideline that has multiple choice questions, and then it has that thing called the TDA. And I'm going to stop right here and talk about the text-dependent analysis prompt, because this is the one thing that where you have to actually write. And then the other part, which actually is where most of your score is based, are what they call the multiple choice. So I would like to help you guys become better at multiple choice, and then help you at least write a 3 on a text-dependent analysis so that you have a chance to get at least a proficient score. Now, let's just get a look at what happens with TDAs and some of the things that kids do, which causes them to not even get any points for the writing. Sometimes you're tired and you quit. And because the test, I'm assuming, is going to all be on computers, it can really help a kid who's in cyber to be able to do better than most kids. There's a blank response that kids will get that'll give them a 0, and there are ways in which kids do a blank answer. They erase it, or they cross it out, or they just, scribble. There's refusal, which a kid can do, just goes back over the text, just doesn't do anything. There's non-scorable, which is scribble, very messy, illegible, insufficient, or unrelated to the passage. Talk about your dog or something, which mostly, or it has copied text right from the passage, and it's thrown in there in the little box if it's on a computer, without any regard to the prompt. There's off topic, which a lot of kids do. They might start with the passage and the prompt and then start talking about how their knee hurts. And then there's text copied or text directions, and it's just copied and pasted in. So there are a couple different ways in which kids have trouble. Now, you guys are all in grade 8, so this is the basic overview of the test. Usually the test is given in 2 modules, and that means you might take a test part 1 in the morning, and you might get about an hour or so to do multiple choice, and then you might get another 45 minutes to do a couple TDAs a piece. So you'll do them in 2 modules. You'll have a module in the morning, and then you'll have a second one in the afternoon. Usually the one in the afternoon is a little shorter. Module 2 is a little shorter. Now, the English language arts sampler that you have here that we're looking at, it has 2 passages. It has 5 passage-related multiple choice questions. It has 2 extended EBSR questions. I'll show you those in another tutoring session. It has 1 TDA prompt. I'll show you what those look like. It also has 4 questions of what we call conventions of standard English, which ask you some things about grammar. So there are 3 passages in this particular booklet, and the first passage has some multiple choice questions and 2 EBSR questions, and then the second passage and the third poem are paired, and so that's followed by 1 PDA prompt. So what they're doing is they're combining some of the reading choices and then asking you to respond to them by comparing in that second one. So you'll see a difference between each of the modules. Each question is accompanied by a table that contains some of your assessment anchors. It gives you an idea of what it should look like here in this tutoring that we're going through. It gives you some idea on some of the eligible content coding, like what standard does it match. And of course, we have the answer key, so we know what these answers would be. And this kid who would give these answers, if this was a real test, would get a perfect score. All right, so each of the question is followed with some analysis or rationale. And what I'll do is when we get ready to look at any one of the questions, we will talk about those questions specifically or that question specifically, and we will take one question at a time or the ones that I think are the most difficult. Now, one of the things that you guys will have to do is you'll have to, again, read a lot of your information on the screen. And one of the things that you're going to be constantly reminded about through administration of the test, if your proctor starts you out with reading directions and making sure that you read the directions, you'll have to go over them numerous times. So some of the questions are going to ask you to select an answer from among 4 choices. Like I always like to tell kids, that means that the right answer is there. You have it, you just have to find it. So, multiple choice questions, you've got to read the passage, you have to look at each question and choose the best answer. That means some of the answers might be close, but only one is really perfectly correct. One of the answers provided is absolutely correct, the others are close, but no cigar. You may look back at the passage always so that you can try to find the answer, and you have to record the answer either online in the computer-based module or if you're doing a paper test. I think most everybody has gone to the computer-based, and you guys are actually probably going to have to take the test either on your iPad unless you're assigned to a computer lab. Now, the evidence-based selected response questions have 2 parts, and they're going to ask you to um, read this. This is the one where they call the EBSR question. So they're asking you to look into the piece that you're reading, and they're asking you to choose, obviously, the correct answer. So you might get the first part wrong, you could get the second part right, but the problem is when you record these types of questions, it's going to have a different type of penalty. So you have to read part 1 of the question and choose the best answer. And you really want to make sure that the first question that you answer, you're at least off on the right foot. Then we record the answer to part 1, either in your answer booklet or online, and only one of the answers provided in part 1 is actually correct. But then you have to read part 2 of the question and choose the evidence to support the answer in part 1. And if part 2 tells you to select 2 answers and you only get one of those right, then you're going to have partial credit for some of these. And if you start out with the wrong answer on part 1, that could throw you off all the way through. So what we call the evidence-based selected response questions, or the EBSRs, those can be very tricky. So you're allowed to look back at the passage to help you answer part 2 of the question, and you want to record your answers to part 2. And if you're doing this by hand in a test booklet, you would write it in the test booklet, but if you're doing it on computer, you click the button. Now, finally, the structure of the test has one more part, and this is called the TDA, and that stands for Text Dependent Analysis. Now, what we have when we look at one of these is you guys are, again, looking at the prompt and you're trying to analyze the passage and you're using some evidence, so you got to pull text evidence down into your essay. Now, when you're doing these essays, you're given approximately 40 minutes to do it. So you've already read the passage, you've already answered some questions on it, and you, again, have to make sure you know what the TDA is asking you to do. There's a writer's checklist, which is part of the guideline that helps you understand what parts you want to make sure you put in your answer. And you're certainly allowed to look back at the essay so you get the right text evidence when you pull it out and explain. And then you're writing your essay where they tell you to in the answer booklet. You're allowed to do a rough draft if you want to. I think that can help a lot of kids. So when we get a little closer to the exam, I'll show you some acronyms that you can use, and those acronyms help you remember what to put into an essay so that you can actually remember to put each part in, because these essays can be anywhere from 3 to 7 or 8 paragraphs, and when you're writing a good and when you're writing an average one, you might be right around 5 paragraphs or 6 paragraphs. So that helps you get every little component that needs to be in the essay. You want to be sure to check that your essay contains evidence from the passage, and then you want to support your response. So that means if I pull something out of the piece that I'm writing about, I need to explain it. It's kind of like the text itself has pieces and parts that help prove what I'm trying to say. So essentially, you're writing a mini argument in your piece. And then you have to check your essay quickly for errors in capitalization, spelling, sentence formation, how you said things, whether or not you put periods at the end of sentences so at least it can be read smoothly. And then what type of words did you choose? Because sometimes those words help elevate your score. All right, so that's what we have in a nutshell in the grade 8 PSSA exam and what it looks like for 8th grade. So the next tutoring session that I'll do will be after the holidays, and we'll take a look at some of the sample multiple choice questions and some of the ways in which we can do better even with our ingenuity work, and we can see how this might help us do a nice job on the exam. Right. So if you folks want to go to my YouTube channel, this is where that you will see this video at a later time, and you can watch it at your convenience. And I will again post all of our tutoring's pieces on my YouTube channel for you under the Grade 8 tab. And good luck, and we'll see you later. And hopefully, if you want to, make sure, as I mentioned, you can download the Pennsylvania System of School assessment. You can also get this item scoring sampler if you want a copy of it. It's PDF. All you have to do is do a search, and you can get the grade 8 PSSA document, and you can look at it while I'm working on any of these questions with you. So long, and see you at our next tutoring session.